I recently had the opportunity to present at an amazing technology conference in Whistler, Canada. And after the conference, I had a lot of questions with people over the coffee breaks and at the reception. And I thought it'd be a great idea to address some of those questions right now while they're fresh on my mind. The first question is, Charmaine, what do you do when you've got an employee who is resistant to wanting to have a meeting with you to talk about feedback or to talk about something that's happened? And I love that question because doesn't that happen all the time? That we have some feedback or some information we need to share with someone and they're not interested in the conversation. Now, in conflict, sometimes this happens because maybe it isn't a conflict. Maybe it's an issue that we have with someone, but they don't actually share the same perspective. But the conversation can still happen. Now, the other thing to know about this before we get into how do you work through the resistance, the other thing is that there's a lot going on for people. Not everyone is comfortable with communication, feedback, and conflict resolution. This can be actually scary for people, create anxiety for them, and people have thought about leaving their jobs because they'd rather quit than have these conversations. Part of what we can do is make the conversation, the environment, safe for them. When you're having these kind of conversations, there's a lot of vulnerability going on your part and the part of the other person. So create that safety. Make it comfortable to have the conversation. Speak with respect. Listen actively. But query the question of resistance. So if someone says, I really don't want to work, I really don't want to have this meeting, instead of saying, well, we have to have this meeting, we've got to talk about this issue, which is normally a response like that happens. Instead of that, say, wow, I'm curious. What's going on for you that you don't want to have this meeting? What is it that you're concerned about? How could we make it more comfortable for you and I to have this conversation? So instead of coming back with a statement, come back with a question. There's that old cliche, ask, don't tell. So that's one of the ways to work through resistance. Another way is to have a preparation meeting with people. So before you have the meeting, just have a short sit down so that there's some bridge building going on. A third way to deal with resistance, if you have somebody who's very oppositional and they're basically saying, I am not meeting with you, well, you might be in a different kind of conversation now. But again, this is where questions come in, where you can say something like, this is very important that you and I have this conversation. And I need to understand from your perspective why you're choosing not to participate. And if they're clearly saying they're choosing not to participate, you're probably now more in a performance type conversation. You may want to get some advice from your HR shop if you have an HR shop, or talk to another leader that has experience with this. But again, when you can get to the driving forces of where the resistance is coming from, usually you can work through that. You can provide safeguards. So if a person's worried about their future employment with the company, you can say, no, this is not a conversation like this. I just need to give you some feedback, which is designed to help you grow. Or I just need to share how your response at staff meeting the other day impacted me, and I want to have an opportunity to talk about that so we can work it through together. So sometimes what you're doing is providing reassurance. So I hope those are some tips that will help you next time you're dealing with a resistant person. I'm Charmaine Hammond, an expert in communication, conflict resolution, collaboration, and resilience. If you'd like to have a conversation about me coming into your team to work with you, your leaders, your team members about improving communication and conflict resolution skills, building a healthy, resilient workforce, or helping you deal with some of the tough issues that you're facing with people, please visit me at charmainehammond.com.